What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with another live NFL preview show, running through the 13, I believe it's 13 total games between 1 and 4. Give out two best bets as well. Still a lot of information to kind of sift through, right? Well, the last week of the NFL season is always an interesting one. With all your late scratches and you trying to predict how long people actually play, how long people don't. So I think it should be a fun week regardless. I think, profits end up typically going to the people that are the most researched, and I think that ultimately that could be said for any given week. But this week in particular, it definitely has a magnifying glass on it with all the extra news that's going to pop up late. And again, you trying to really sift through just how long some starters are going to play. I mean, we'll talk through some of these games and you'll find, some of them, as I'm sure you've already done in your own handicapping or process, difficult, right? Difficult to kind of predict what could, would, or should happen in some of these games in relation to how long players, how long of a leash they get. And look, it's relevant, right? It's relevant to the spread. It's relevant to games. I think that today more than ever, I wouldn't be betting a lot of over player props today, personally. I just think there's so much variance, especially if you're betting over player props for no names on teams that don't have much at all to play for. So just something to keep in mind. Nice to hit our best bet yesterday with Denver. I think, like I said, I think there's a few good spots today that I'll go into. But outside of that, don't be going crazy. Don't go reckless. It is still a fairly volatile slate as a whole, whether you're betting or playing DFS. So, like I said, either way, just keep yourself disciplined. And I guess without further ado, let's dive right in. Also, worth noting real quickly, we got a little prop for today's action. I don't know if you guys could see. A little heating pad for the back. Might have hit a nerve yesterday doing some deadlifts. Time will tell. We shall see. But, having some issues contorting my back in really any way, standing up, sitting. So hopefully nothing major. I know you guys are saying, yeah, you probably don't deadlift a lot of weight. Yeah, you might be right, but regardless, I pound the metal. Hurt myself deadlifting about 85 pounds. So for the real ones that know, it's big weight, big weight. Just kidding. Relax. All right. So let's dive right in. So the first game, Browns, Bengals. What do we got? Browns minus 5.5, total 37. Look, I know Cincinnati is not going to have a lot of players today. And look, who knows how long Nick Chubb's going to play or how long his leash is going to be. But Case Keenum, my guy, is in for Cleveland. Look, it still just seems like a big number to lay with Cleveland. But then again, you look at it, if you're trying to be somewhat strategic, like Cleveland's defense isn't terrible by any means. And you're getting like all of Cincinnati's backups today. So, it gun to my head, I'd probably play Cincinnati's team total under, which is low, right? I want to be clear, this isn't a bet I made, but just kind of walking you through some thought processes. Brandon Allen is a bad quarterback. We've seen him play before, and now you're going to get him with second stringers behind him to throw passes to potentially, right? So the Bengals team total is 15.5. I'll be honest, that feels so high. But, so again, gun to my head, call it a lean under 15.5, the Bengals team total. You would just have to have some real slips in Cleveland's defense or like a special teams touchdown or like a pick six or something. Because, man, like the idea that, Brandon Allen struggles when he has starters around him. He's not going to have starters around him. So, I think it's going to be a struggle for them to move the football, personally. But, it wasn't enough to bet. I just often don't like betting those numbers that low under. But it does, it does kind of make a lot of sense. Okay, so let's move on to the next game. If you have any questions on anything, if you throw them in the chat, I'll do my best to get to them. I will. I'm being facetious. So Lions, Packers, Green Bay minus 3, total 44.5. Yeah, much like I mentioned earlier in the video, how long do you think Aaron Rodgers plays today? Does he play one series? Does he play one quarter? Does he play two quarters? Does he play 4 quarters? Here's what I know. I know what we saw yesterday was so weird with what Dallas did. It's easy to say after the fact and the game ends and Dallas's offense looked good. But woof, one of those dudes gets hurt. Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Dak. I mean, it changes things from the playoff end. So, Rodgers has been a little banged up all year anyway. I know they have the extra week as the bye regardless. But if you're handicapping this game, like if you're betting the Lions, you are betting the Lions because you truly believe you are not going to get a lot of Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. You're going to get like all the backups with Jordan Love. And then if that's the case, though, I'd argue Detroit should be favored here because Detroit's definitely going to try to win this game. They have nothing to lose winning this game in relation to draft picks. So, they would try to win this game, in my opinion. Overall, I think if you're going to bet this game, to me personally, I'd bet it live myself. I just don't think they're gonna adjust the numbers live enough or well enough based on what you see. So like you can kind of tell when it looks like Aaron Rodgers might be done for the day. Like you saw yesterday, like when Zeke went off the field in the third quarter and he went up to Mike McCarthy, they kind of like had like a little hug and he slapped him on the helmet. And you kind of knew Zeke wasn't coming back into the game from that point. I'm not saying the same thing will happen with Rodgers, but I think you'll get a good idea on when he's not going to come back. And to me, at that point, you can live bet the Lions. I think if you're going to bet Green Bay, I think you can only really bet them in the first half, I think, or maybe first quarter. But Detroit's shown some recent life recently. And I mean, credit to them offensively. Now, granted, they've been in games, but their offense really hasn't shined through like it has the last few weeks. So their offense has looked better. That's any team, though. Take chance anytime they hit the field. Yeah, Eric, I don't know if I fully agree. I think that at least in most spots of the NFL season, you at least know what players you're going to get on the field. Today, you're not going to know for a fact what players you're going to get on the field. You could be as well researched. You can adjust to late news as best you can, but you're not going to know, who you can play and who you can't, or who's going to play and who's not going to. It's a lot of assumption based. I won't bet this game because, look, based off the Dallas game yesterday, if the Packers decide they're going to play 3 quarters with starters today for whatever reason, I mean, the Packers should be like -7.5 here. If the Packers are only going to play 1 quarter, the line's probably fair. It's fair enough anyway. So yeah, I mean, I think if you truly believe you're going to get 1 quarter of Aaron Rodgers today, if that, I think the Lions are a great bet, personally, +3, even on the money line, because again, the Packers are clearly not going to try to win this game in the sense like going all out, whereas the Lions are probably going to do everything they can to win this game. Okay, next game up. Vikings Bears. So this is an interesting one, right? The Vikings now are down to -4, total 44. No Justin Fields. You're getting Andy Dalton, Montgomery and such with Allen Robinson and Mooney. They should play the whole game. Dalvin Cook had an inspirational interview this week where it seemed like he's going to give it his all today. For Zimmer, Kirk Cousins obviously making his return from COVID in a game that doesn't mean anything. Justin Jefferson, I'm sure, would like to close the season out on a high note. This game, of course, means nothing to both teams. Look, to me, if this game meant something to Minnesota, this line would be 6.5. It's 4. The game doesn't mean anything to Minnesota. Probably a fair line. I would really realistically lean the Bears over their team total. Don't love it in the sense because I actually like betting the Bears over the team total when Justin Fields is their quarterback, especially down the stretch. Justin Fields has some terrible overall numbers, but the dude has got points on the board for this team down the stretch. So Andy Dalton I do believe is a fair enough upgrade. He just doesn't have as much upside. Fields could be out there slinging the ball 40, 50 yards downfield, take off for 20, take off for 30. Andy Dalton doesn't have that type of upside, but he is more of a consistent passer. And this Minnesota defense is certainly exposable. So look, strong lean, call it the points with the Bears, but I don't love the spot. Again, if the Vikings play all their starters for 4 quarters, and actually really try to win this game, I'd lay up to 7 with them. I truly don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see random guys start sitting at random parts of the game. I'd be shocked if Jefferson plays the whole game. I'd be shocked if Dalvin plays the whole game. I think it'd be shocked if Kirk Cousins played the whole game. Maybe this is the type of game where maybe Kellen Mond sees the field. So yeah, I think it's tough to love the Vikings in this spot. But again, goes back to your own research and handicapping. If you truly believe you're going to get 4 quarters of starters for the Vikings, this line's definitely too short. I just don't think that's going to be the case. Okay, next game up. Let's do a game I have a bet in. Okay, so Texans Titans. Current line 10.5 pending your book. I know FanDuel still has this lined at 10. I actually split this down the middle. I like the Titans first half -6, and I like the Titans full game -10. Both these numbers are available at FanDuel. That's both of those for half unit. So you have Titans first half -6. Titans full game -10. So the -6 was -120. The -10 was -115. These were both FanDuel and both for 0.5U. Yeah, so this handicap is all about the numbers. I know the Titans are a tough team to want to love laying a lot of points with, and they just hammered a team in Miami last week. And these are spots I rarely bet, to be honest. I rarely target a team like this in a spot like this. This line's too small. Like, I know Houston's getting credit. Davis Mills all of a sudden went from a quarterback people didn't understand how he had a quarterback job to now people have him as one of the better rookies this year, believe it or not. So yeah, look, I look at this Tennessee has, to me, I look at this as you have the Colts and you have the Jaguars and the line's 14. Why is this line not 14? Why is this line not 13.5? Because I'd argue the situations are very similar. Jacksonville and Houston are very similar teams. They just played a few weeks back where Jacksonville was favored. And if you argue Tennessee and Indy are fairly equal, or even Tennessee's better with their current roster, again, they don't have Henry. If they have Henry, they're above Indy. But if you argue without Henry, they're somewhat equal. Why is this line 10? I think it's 10 because Houston's been getting a lot of credit. They've looked better down the stretch. And, another team where they're not going to lose much trying to win this game. They played San Francisco hard last week, and I know they ended up not covering late. But they won 2 games in a row before that, Jags and Chargers. They're playing well down the stretch again, and I think that's why this line is what it is. But this is not giving Tennessee enough credit for how good they've been. They're getting Julio back today. Obviously, A.J. Brown's there. Deontay Foreman's been tremendous. Their defense has been incredible. To me, this is a pure value play. Titans first half, Titans full game. Houston could cover. Houston could win outright, I guess, in theory. But Titans have a lot to play for. It's not like they don't. I know they're not your prototypical sexy team. They don't like run up the scores on teams. They're not flashy on offense without Henry. But must-win spot. To me, this spot's very comparable to the Colts, and you're getting it 4 points cheaper. So, yeah, I'll happily lay these points with Tennessee. Okay, so next game up. Ravens-Steelers is actually an interesting game because I thought Lamar Jackson might come back for this one, and he did not. But look, I mean, the Steelers catching 3.5. Look, I don't mind the idea of value there. The Steelers are one of the worst first half teams in football for starters. And I know they played decent the first half last week, but they got gifted some yards and some interesting. I remember that penalty by Clowney when it was about to be 4th down from in puntable position or a very long field goal for Pittsburgh, and he threw a shoe, which gave him free 15 yards, ended up in a touchdown. And from there, Pittsburgh never looked back. But Pittsburgh's offense didn't look very good. What did look good was Najee Harris. And Najee Harris will not have the same type of running room he had last week. I think this is your best rush defense in football in Baltimore. So you're going to have Ben throw the ball downfield, and his yards per pass attempt is like one of the lowest in the league. Don't get me wrong. We have the Ravens issues at cornerback where they're still not healthy, and Roethlisberger might be able to take advantage, but I don't love the spot at all on the Pittsburgh end. I'll likely have a stack in DFS in this game on both ends to protect myself, but I won't. This is not a game I love on the Steelers end. On the Ravens side, look, say what you want about Huntley. He's been good. He's looked good, and when he plays, Mark Andrews looks great. They've had a pretty well balanced attack. It's an interesting game regardless. It wouldn't even surprise me if this game like went over. I know it's a low number. I know these are two good defenses, but if Baltimore's offense continues to look the way it has, I know they've lost 5 in a row, but they've looked decent offensively. And look, let's be honest, both teams still have a shot to make the playoffs. Baltimore's chances are much worse because of the extra loss. And Pittsburgh still needs some help to get in, but regardless, it's still a winnable game that both teams want. I don't like the Pittsburgh side much. I'd argue more for the Baltimore side, but we can move on. The Colts Jaguars. So I briefly mentioned this game before. Colts minus 14.5 pending your book. The Colts wouldn't really need this game, or wouldn't need much of this game if they just won last week. Now this game becomes must win. I will tell you this: it is a very rare scenario in the NFL where you get this exact type of situation last week of the year. Think about this, right? The Colts are a must win to make the playoffs. Like, they have to win to get in, more or less. The Jaguars have to lose to have the number 1 overall pick. So, I don't want to talk about money line locks, right? But it would be wild if the Colts lost this game today. A game that very likely the Jaguars want to lose to assure themselves the number 1 overall pick. And a game that the Colts need to win to get into the playoffs. And the Colts are a dangerous team anyway. I'm not one to sit here and tell you to lay money line numbers or add this into a parlay. Minus 900 though, it would be wild to me if the Colts lost today. I think it would be wild to a lot of people though, right? So I'm not betting it. I'm not betting the spot. It just makes a lot of sense. Marvin Jones needing 4 catches for $500,000. Is it Marvin Jones? For whatever reason, I thought it was a different player. You could be right though, Walla. No, I don't like betting props that are based on incentives, because think about this for a second, Walla. Sportsbooks know this. Okay, it's not like people are researching this news and it's like sportsbooks have no idea. They're padding the numbers. Marvin Jones, 4.5 catches, 46.5 yards, is a high number for him. These are high props for him. These are not props he's had at these numbers. So obviously they're padded a little bit. They might be padded with VIG too. Not saying there's anything wrong with them. They could definitely hit. I just think that realize that sportsbooks know. We're not the only ones that know about these types of things, right? So just keep that in mind. And I think that you're just paying a little extra. You're going to pay a little extra tax on it. So just keep that in mind. It could definitely hit. Just letting you know. Okay, so as for this game, look, Jonathan Taylor's in such a smash spot. It goes without saying, and I doubt they're going to take a lot of risks with Carson Wentz here in this spot. It is hard to imagine Jacksonville keeping pace here. I think this could be one of those backyard football type games for Jacksonville. It's a pass spot for me. The number is very fat. I'd argue maybe for some value on Jacksonville at this number. Again, this goes back to the fact that this number is inflated, much like the Denver Broncos game was inflated yesterday. The difference, of course, is that the Jaguars have a lot to lose not getting the number 1 overall pick. It would be good for them as a franchise. You would have back-to-back number 1 overall picks. You obviously pick up Lawrence last year, and you're going to redo your coaching staff. I'm not saying this team has like a lot to look forward to next year, but having a number 1 overall pick again, and part of a rebuild with a good quarterback. I like Lawrence. I know he hasn't played well. I don't think he's gotten the right tutelage, to be honest. I think under the right coaching staff, I think he'll shine. No pun intended with the blonde hair, but overall, I just think I don't think he's been given a fair chance to succeed in the NFL. Just an outstanding college quarterback and an outstanding high school quarterback, and you would think at some point that translates. Keep in mind his build was that of a better Justin Herbert, right? And Herbert's playing really well, but Herbert's got the right tutelage. So under Staley and has all the weapons around him and a good defense. So I just think the situations, Trevor Lawrence in a better situation, I think you're going to see a better version of him. So Ken, I don't mind it. I think Devontae Smith caught 2 total balls yesterday. There's not. And one of them, by the way, Ken, was a tipped ball that wasn't even to him. That was for 20 yards. So I guess going off that premise, I don't necessarily think they forced it, quote unquote, because I mean he just caught two passes. I think if you take every sample, I think if you take every time a player should go over their player prop for an extra incentive or for an extra record, and when they hit, you're going to remember it. When they lose, you're probably not going to remember it. So again, just something to keep in mind. And again, I know he caught two balls, but if you watch the game, one of them wasn't even to him. It was a tip pass to somebody else, and he caught it. Okay, so next game, Giants-Washington. Not much to go over here. I've already said this to you guys. I'm not a Jake Fromm guy. Maybe Washington wants to end the season on a high note. But man, I mean, Jake Fromm's pretty rough. So, overall, easy pass spot for me. Look, I've lost a lot of money betting the Giants this year in spots where I thought were favorable for them, and they continue to let me down. Maybe this is the time they get things right. But either way, it's been a money pit betting them, so I'm not on that bandwagon anymore. I don't know who is, to be honest, for that matter, but it's a big number to label Washington on the road in a game that doesn't mean anything. So there's that angle too, but yeah, definitely no bet for me in that game. Okay, so let's move on. Saints-Falcons, another interesting game. Look, I'd argue for some value on the Falcons. Don't love the spot, but I would argue for some value there. Primarily because the division game, the Falcons are not just going to lay down here in this spot. Saints still likely need some help, even with a win. Granted, they've been better with Taysom. I think their record with Taysom and Jameis is like 8-2, something like that. And with Simeon and Ian Book, it's like 0-5 or something. Again, I think these are the numbers. So look, you get Hill back, so it's better for them. Falcons, might not have Kyle Pitts today. I'm not 100% sure. This game looks like an under. I mean, I'll tell you this: the Saints do not. There is nothing explosive about the Saints. Anything they do, and Atlanta at times can look good early in games, but it seems like in the second half they just kind of falter. I've seen them score 17, 20 points in the first half and then not score anything in the second half, and I feel like they've done that multiple times this year. But either way. At 3.5, I lean the Falcons. I don't love the spot, though. I just think it's a big number on the road in a game where I think maybe people, are just going to think that the Falcons are just going to lay down in this spot to the Saints who need a win. Number feels a bit big. So, yeah, lean Falcons, didn't bet it. Buffalo Jets, 16.5 here. Jets won't have Berrios, but they will get, I think, Elijah Moore back today. Must-win game or an important game for Buffalo to win. Look, Buffalo just seems to always have the Jets number. And Berrios has been this team's offense for the last few weeks. He's not there today. Maybe Elijah Moore steps up. Maybe somebody else steps up. But this just has the makings of Buffalo scoring as many points as they want to score. But that's the problem, right? So how many is that? When does Buffalo call off the dogs? Does Buffalo go up 2 or 3 scores and call off the dogs? Is this game competitive because the Jets offense shows up? I just think there's a lot of variables here. The number does look a little big, but I don't think it is. Like Buffalo just consistently owns this team, like in every way. I don't know if it's a scheme thing. Buffalo just seems to consistently own this team. So I think you can look into Buffalo's team total over, which is probably 30, like 27.5, right? Because it would be 28. Would be 28-11. Yeah, so 28-11 would be about. So yeah, it should be about 28.5, 27.5. So I don't mind that over. I don't mind Buffalo's team total first half over, their first half team total over. I think you get a spot where Buffalo comes out here and scores points. So how they finish the game, I think, is the big question. So I think you can kind of maneuver yourself around that way. So Buffalo team total or even Buffalo first half, those would be spots I would look to. Again, did not bet this game though. Game I did bet, Cardinals Seahawks. Really like this first half over. So I know I've been snake bitten, if you will, by some of these Cardinals first half overs over the last few weeks. But to me, the Cardinals did their share last week. The Cowboys did not. So to me, I'll go right back to it. Cards, Seahawks, first half over 24. Got that -120 FanDuel. Um, Seahawks have really found themselves offensively down the stretch. This also might be Russell Wilson's last game. So I think you're going to get the best version of him. He's not going to want to go out on a low note, or not going to want to try to go out on a low note. Penny's been one of the better running backs in football over the last few weeks. His team's running the football extremely effectively. Cardinals want to win this game. I think you're going to get there a good showing from them. I don't necessarily think you're going to get the same defensive showing either. Like, they looked like surprisingly good against Dallas, but I think that was more Dallas. Like, Dak was missing throws and Zeke looked terrible between the tackles. It was just more of Dallas, I think, than Arizona's defense. So overall, though, I do like this first half over. Again, this is purely based on the fact that Seattle's offense has been really improved over the last few weeks, and the Cardinals need this game just like any other team would. So I think you get good offensive fireworks early. The full game might go over too. I prefer the first half. So it's a spot I really like today, and call that my final best bet from the show. Patriots Dolphins, another interesting game. In theory, the game doesn't mean anything to the Dolphins, but I'd go as far to say the Dolphins want to end this year on a high note in terms of a winning record. They played really well. The thing that deters me a little bit in this spot is the fact that this is a pretty rare scenario where a team in the Dolphins wins 7 straight games, and they're starting to think, holy shit, we actually might make the playoffs. And then the week before this would be their Super Bowl, they lost in a game that was close to a pick'em line. And they lost pretty badly. Now, do they jump ship? I mean, I'm sorry, mentally, does it become an issue for them in this game, or are they able to turn the corner and really try to end the year on a high note? They've also kind of had New England's number to a certain extent, especially in Miami. I just think this number is a bit inflated, personally. So I'm not a big fan of it, of the New England side. I think there's some value on Miami, but ultimately, Patriots are just going to try to bleed this clock throughout. That's what they're going to try to do anyway. Maybe they use this spot to try to get Mac Jones a little more pass exposure before the playoffs. Maybe this is a decent Dolphins defense, so I think it would be a good test for Mac Jones if New England tries to throw the ball a little more. This game doesn't mean a whole lot to New England, especially since Buffalo's a 17-point favorite against the Jets. Now, this game does become more important, of course, if Buffalo loses, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least. And I know this might sound silly, if they look at the scoreboard at halftime and Buffalo's up 3 touchdowns, that New England starts to call the dogs off in their game to prepare for next week. Because, again, this game only really means something to New England if Buffalo loses against the Jets. So with that said, call it lean the Dolphins. Okay. One more game, I think. 49ers, Rams. Oh, Bucks and Panthers. Okay, so 49ers, Rams. Jimmy G making his return. As you guys know, I am kind of a Jimmy G guy. I think that he blacks out from time to time on the field. But I think at times he can be extremely efficient. And he has a great coach and a great offensive mind and a good offensive line and good weapons around him and a great play caller and great schemes. And I think he's just put in a tremendous situation to succeed. Now, I don't think he makes the right decisions all the time. And that kind of gets proven by some of the mistakes he makes. But I do believe he's an upgrade from Trey Lance at this point in time. And there's also the narrative here that the Rams are 0-5 against the Mike Shanahan-led 49ers. Sean McVay, I don't think has beaten the 49ers in 2.5 years, whether it's at home, whether it's on whatever, it doesn't matter. It seems like from a scheme standpoint, Shanahan just has his number. And the 49ers is an important game. I continue to say this, much like the Colts, the 49ers are a dangerous team if they sneak into the playoffs. This team runs the football extremely efficiently. They're one of the best play-action teams in the NFL. They have a sneaky good D-line. People forget about how good that defensive line is or was. And also a sneaky good defense. I mean, granted, they make mistakes in the secondary, and it shows. And they've been exploitable by good wide receivers, and they might get exploitable today. But I believe Jimmy G's playing today, at least so I've heard. Cole, I lean the spot. This would be a spot I'd like to get on live. I think if the Rams go up early, quick touchdown, and I can get the 49ers +7, +7.5. Definitely going to jump on that live. I just think the 49ers offense all year has been underrated. They're one of the best offensive teams in terms of yards per play, points per play, and an underrated defense. And to me, this is a scary team in the NFL. They have an offense that travels with how well they run the football. And yeah, I think they could. They steal a win here. They're definitely in, and I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. So yeah, call it lean the 49ers, but I much would prefer to wait to get that number past 7 live. Last but not least, Panthers Bucks. There is, of course, some MVP narratives here. The Bucks are going to try to win this game, but the interesting thing is how much does Brady really care about potentially winning this MVP? Because if he really does, you're likely going to get a really good performance from him today, or at least he's going to try to play really well today. Because you look at the numbers, and yes, Aaron Rodgers has much less interceptions, but Aaron Rodgers played one less game, and likely he's going to play another less game because I doubt he plays today, if much at all. And then you look at the yardage, and Brady's completely trumping him in yardage. He's winning in touchdowns. QBR or quarterback rating, Aaron Rodgers is up by like 7 or 8 points. QBR is up by like 1 point. This MVP race, quote unquote, is a lot closer than the markets indicate. So I just think a good performance from Brady could help him win the MVP if that's what he wants. And I think it's a great story too. A guy that's 44 winning the MVP of the league. I just think overall it makes a lot of sense for Brady to try to go out, maybe even potentially to stick it up Antonio Brown's ass after his comments about, needing me. So I just think there's some potential there for Brady to really shine today. But with that said, lot of lack of continuity around him, right? Not a whole lot of weapons. And Adam, yeah, I know they said that, but I mean, that could literally mean they play one series. Like it literally could. I mean, the Packers have absolutely nothing to play for today. So at least the Bucs have something to play for. They would want to get home field advantage against some of these other teams. But yeah, as for this game, don't love the spot. I think you could maybe look into betting the Panthers team total over. I haven't liked the Bucs. I think you're getting a bit of an inflated number here when you consider the Brady and his lack of weapons around him today. And the Panthers, I just think the extra shading of movement, I think opens up some potential for the Panthers to go over their team total today, which is, what's their team total? Let's see real quick. It should be like 16.5-ish. Totals. So 15.5 or 6, because 15.5 is a little heavy, Vic. So 16 is probably a fair number. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. The Panthers over the team total. Not a bet I made. Maybe if the steam moves a little more and I can get this at like 14.5, maybe I would target that. But outside of that, not a spot I absolutely love, but it would be, if you're looking for a spot, an angle for the game I like, I don't mind the Panthers team total over. Okay, so that wraps it up. I gave you the best bets on Tennessee first half, Tennessee full game, half unit each, and the first half over Cardinals, Seahawks over 24 minus 120. As always, as I mentioned earlier today, this week is a very unique one where you will get a lot of randomness in terms of how long people play, how long people don't. I highly advise you do not bet a whole lot of player props today, especially player props over for games that are meaningless to the team in question. But overall, wish you guys all the best of luck, of course. As always, gamble responsibly. I'll be back on the DFS show with JSU and Holden at 12 o'clock for the Run Pure crew. And then Jason will have his live show for the Keg members, where he's going to be giving out live plays and talking through some football while it's on. But as always, folks, like I said, stay safe, gamble responsibly. Last Sunday in the books for the regular season, and then next week we get playoffs. Got a bunch of college basketball action starting up. I think I started 9-1 with the college basketball plays. So yeah, good start, but in my typical fashion, humble as always. And tennis starting up as well, Australian Open in a few weeks. So yeah, just because football is kind of winding down and college football is winding down doesn't mean we stop. The content continues in all sports. And I already have a college football video for you guys as well for the national championship for tomorrow. So yeah, as always, folks, stay safe, gamble responsibly, and run pure. Catch you next time.